The door opened, and, after 15 long years, my children stood before me. It was a moment I'd replayed in my head 1,000 times, wishing for glistening eyes and warm hugs. But what I got was a rehearsed smile, the kind you use to close a deal. A look that told me instantly they weren't here for me. They were here for what they thought they could take from me. My mother's heart, which had yearned for this day for so long, felt the first cold blow of the truth. It was a truth that Arthur, my late husband, had foreseen, a truth that had a quiet power hidden within it. My son, Michael, and my daughter, Sarah, stepped into the house. This house, their childhood home, they hadn't visited in a decade and a half. I watched them as their eyes scanned the familiar furniture, the walls filled with our family's history. But there was no nostalgia there, no softness, just the assessing gaze of a real estate agent. They spoke of the past, of growing up here, but it was rushed, like a formality, like someone wanting to jump straight to the future. A future, I realized with a fresh sting, where I was clearly not part of their plans. I just stood there, silently, feeling the heavy weight of every unspoken word, every hidden intention that hung in the air between us. It was clear to them, I suppose. I was just Eleanor, the widow of a rich man, an elderly lady holding the key to the vault. They couldn't imagine, truly, that the greatest treasure Arthur left me wasn't money, not really. It was something far more precious, protection against their very greed. They had no idea. Every polite smile they offered me, every forced pleasantry, it only reminded me of the careful plan Arthur had put in place, a plan specifically designed to defend me. They walked around my home, so confident in their purpose, oblivious, and what they still didn't know. And the final act of that play would not at all be what they expected. My name is Eleanor. I'm 76 years old now. I'm the widow of Arthur, my wonderful Arthur. He was a businessman, yes, but more than that, he was a man who worked his entire life, not just for success, but to give me a comfort, a life I had never even dreamed of. We lived for over 40 years in this enormous house. It's where I raised our 2 children, Michael and Sarah. After Arthur passed away, I just kept living here, quietly, tending my garden, and tending to the memories. Every room holds a piece of us, a memory we built together. I live a simple life, you know? I don't need luxuries. The true value of things, to me, was never in their price tag. Arthur, he was always so intelligent, so cautious. He saw the coldness, that little sliver of it growing in our children's hearts, long before I ever did. I remember it so clearly. He was already weak then, his voice barely a whisper, but his words were so clear. He said, "Eleanor, my love, I've taken care of everything. This house, every single penny, everything is yours and no one else's. Keep this binder. Only open it if you ever feel they're trying to take advantage of you." I did keep that binder, tucked it away, but I never, not for a second, thought I would actually need to use it. Not against my own flesh and blood. The idea was just unthinkable. For me, this house was never just an asset. It was our home. It was the place where Michael, my little boy, learned to ride his bicycle, wobbling across the yard. It's where Sarah, my sweet Sarah, had her big 15th birthday party, all balloons and laughter. I've lived surrounded by these memories for so long, holding on to them, believing that one day they would remember too, that these walls would speak to them as they spoke to me. A mother's naivety, I suppose. It feels like both a strength and, in moments like these, a crushing weakness. But I truly never imagined, never in my wildest dreams did I think that the very people Arthur most wanted to protect me from, the ones he saw coming, would be the children I brought into this world, the children I gave life to. It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? To realize the people you nurtured, the ones you loved unconditionally, see you not as a mother, but as a stepping stone, as something to be managed, something to be gained from. And as I watched them, those cold, assessing glances, I just knew in my heart of hearts that this wasn't about a mother-child reunion. It was something else entirely. And the thought filled me with a quiet dread, a chilling sense of what was to come. My name is Eleanor. I'm 76 years old now. I'm the widow of Arthur, my wonderful Arthur. He was a businessman, yes, but more than that. He was a man who worked his entire life, not just for success, but to give me a comfort, a life I had never even dreamed of. We lived for over 40 years in this enormous house. It's where I raised our two children, Michael and Sarah. After Arthur passed away, I just kept living here, quietly, tending my garden and tending to the memories. Every room holds a piece of us, a memory we built together. I live a simple life, you know. I don't need luxuries. The true value of things, to me, was never in their price tag. I remember waking up each morning in this big house, feeling its quiet embrace. The sun would stream through the tall windows, just like it always has. My first stop was usually the garden. I'd walk among the rose bushes Arthur planted for me years ago, feeling the cool morning air on my skin. Pruning a few leaves here, watering a thirsty plant there. It was my calm, my little world. Inside, the house held all our stories. The faint scent of old books in Arthur's study, the way the floorboards creaked just so on the landing, reminding me of Michael sneaking downstairs for a late-night snack when he was a teenager. The small crayon marks Sarah made on the kitchen wall, still there after all these years, just above the height chart we used to measure them. These weren't just walls and rooms, they were moments. They were us. Arthur, he was always so intelligent, so cautious. He saw the coldness, that little sliver of it growing in our children's hearts, long before I ever did. I was always the hopeful one, the one who saw the best in them. He would watch them, quietly, sometimes with a faraway look in his eyes that I didn't quite understand then. But now, it all makes sense. I remember it so clearly. He was already weak then, his voice barely a whisper. We were sitting on the porch swing, the one we built together. He held my hand, and his words were so clear, so steady, despite his failing strength. He said, "Eleanor, my love, I've taken care of everything. This house, every single penny, everything is yours, and no one else's. Keep this binder. Only open it if you ever feel they're trying to take advantage of you." He made me promise, and I did. I kept that binder, tucked it away in his old study, in a drawer only I knew about, a dark leather binder, heavy in my hands. I remember its smell, the faint scent of old paper, and something else, something like Arthur's quiet determination. I always saw it as a kind gesture, a loving precaution, a just in case for some distant, abstract threat. Never, not for a second, not even in my darkest dreams, did I think I would actually need to use it. Not against my own flesh and blood. The idea was just unthinkable. My children, my Michael, my Sarah, how could they ever? For me, this house was never just an asset, never a number on a balance sheet. It was our home. It was the place where Michael, my little boy, learned to ride his bicycle, wobbling across the yard, scraped knees and triumphant shouts. It's where Sarah, my sweet Sarah, had her big 15th birthday party, all balloons and laughter filling these very rooms. Every echo, every shadow holds a piece of that life. I've lived surrounded by these memories for so long, holding on to them, believing that one day they would remember too, that these walls would speak to them as they spoke to me, that the warmth of our shared past would somehow call them back. A mother's naivety, I suppose. It feels like both a strength and, in moments like these, a crushing weakness. It makes you blind to what's right in front of you. And as I watched Michael and Sarah that day, standing in my living room, looking at my home with those cold, appraising eyes, the truth hit me with a force that took my breath away. It was a truth I had always pushed away, a truth Arthur had seen years ago and tried so hard to prepare me for. But I truly never imagined, never in my wildest dreams, did I think that the very people Arthur most wanted to protect me from, the ones he saw coming, would be the children I brought into this world, the children I gave life to. It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? To realize the people you nurtured, the ones you loved unconditionally, see you not as a mother, but as a stepping stone, as something to be managed, something to be gained from. This was just the beginning. This was just the beginning. It started subtly, a slow, careful reapproach. After so many years of silence, the phone began to ring. First, it was just weekly calls. Michael, my eldest, would call and ask how I was, in that clipped, polite way he had. Sarah, my daughter, would follow up a day or two later, her voice a little softer, but still distant. It felt strange, almost like talking to strangers at first. I tried to sound cheerful, tried to bridge the gap. My heart, it ached for that connection, that familiar rhythm of family. It yearned for them, for the children I remembered, the ones who once ran through these halls. Then the visits started. Sundays, usually. They'd show up at my front door, sometimes with the grandchildren. My grandchildren. I hardly knew them, these young ones. Michael's two boys, teenagers mostly, tall and gangly, always on their phones. And Sarah's little girl, a quiet thing with big, curious eyes, who just clung to her mother's leg. They didn't know me. Not really. It was awkward. I'd try to talk to them, ask about school, but their answers were short, almost rehearsed. My children, Michael and Sarah, they'd fill the silence by talking about the importance of united family. how it was so good for the children to see their grandmother, to connect with their roots. Michael would even say he regretted the lost time, his voice a little strained. And Sarah, she'd sometimes tear up, saying how much she missed me, how she'd missed our Sunday lunches, our talks, and my heart. It was so thirsty for affection, so desperate for them to be the children I once knew, that I wanted to believe every single word. I truly did. But little by little, the subject started to change. It wasn't abrupt, never. It was a slow, steady drift. They'd start talking about their lives, their struggles, the financial difficulties they were experiencing, how tough it was out there, the debts they were carrying, the ever-increasing cost of that expensive private school they sent the grandchildren to. It was always just casual mentions at first, a sigh here, a worried frown there. But soon it became a regular part of our conversations. They'd look around my large living room, their eyes lingering on the high ceilings, the wide spaces, and comment on how big the house was. "Too big just for you, Mom," Michael would say, almost musing aloud. "And the maintenance must be astronomical," Sarah would add, shaking her head sympathetically. Then came the suggestions, always framed as being for my own good, how it would be smarter for me to move into a small, worry-free apartment, something manageable, something modern. No more big gardens to tend, no more old pipes to worry about. They would take care of everything, they promised. Each suggestion was like a small prick to my heart, a tiny needle twisting just beneath the surface. It wasn't just a prick, it was a realization, a cold clarity. They weren't offering me peace, they were offering me a cage. I'd try to change the subject, try to steer the conversation back to family, to memories, to anything else. I'd offer to help with their monthly bills, thinking maybe it was just a financial squeeze. I'd prepare their favorite lunch, the pot roast Michael always loved, Sarah's special lemon meringue pie. I'd watch them eat, hoping to see a flicker of the warmth I remembered. But the coldness in their eyes, it didn't change. Not really. They didn't want my help, not my financial aid for their problems. They wanted control. They wanted what my husband Arthur had left. And I was just the elderly guardian, standing in their way, holding the key. With each visit, with each thinly veiled suggestion, the feeling grew stronger. The feeling that I wasn't their mother. Not anymore. I was just a safe deposit box, a vault to be opened. I felt that the day they would finally show their true claws, the day they would drop the act, was getting closer and closer. The air in my home, once filled with their childhood laughter, now felt heavy with unspoken demands and a quiet, chilling dread. And with each forced smile they gave me, that polite, empty smile, I felt it. I felt that the day they would finally show their true claws, the day they would drop the act, was getting closer and closer. The air in my home, once filled with their childhood laughter, now felt heavy with unspoken demands and a quiet, chilling dread. Then came the Tuesday. It was a Tuesday afternoon, here in my living room in Atlanta, the very heart of my home. The doorbell chimed, and when I opened it, there they were, Michael and Sarah. But this time, they weren't alone. They had a man with them. He was neatly dressed, holding a slim briefcase, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Michael introduced him as Mr. Davies, a financial advisor and a family friend. The words felt like a warning, even before he spoke. He asked me to sit, not on any chair, but on my favorite sofa, the one covered in soft, familiar fabric, the same sofa where Arthur and I used to spend so many evenings together, just talking or reading or simply being quiet. It was a comfort, that sofa. But on that Tuesday, it felt like a stage, and I was the reluctant performer. Mr. Davies sat opposite me, opening his binder. Inside, I could see blueprints, drawings of small apartments, brochures with glossy pictures of luxury, retirement homes, places for old people, places that were not my home. Michael spoke first. His voice was calm, firm, too firm. It was the voice of someone in charge, someone delivering a decision, not asking for input, not even discussing. It was like he was firing an employee, telling them their services were no longer needed. He said I was too old to take care of such a large house, my home of 40 years. He said it was a waste of space, a waste of money, a waste of my time. He listed reasons, logical, practical reasons, but each one felt like a stone thrown at my heart. Then Sarah chimed in, completing his sentences, echoing his thoughts. Her voice was softer than Michael's, but no less resolute. She said it would be best for me, that they, Michael and Sarah, would take care of everything. They would handle the sale of the house. With the money from that sale, they could sort out their lives, she said. And then, and only then, they would give me a peaceful old age. They decided my future, right there in my own living room. They laid out my new life, a life I didn't want, a life they had planned without even a single question, without a hint of consultation. It was all settled, all decided, and I was just informed. I remained silent. I couldn't speak. The words just wouldn't come. My throat felt tight, as if something were lodged deep inside. I just sat there, looking at the faces of my children. Michael, my son. Sarah, my daughter. And I didn't recognize them. Not really. Their eyes were cold, assessing, just like before, but now with a definite, final purpose. They weren't looking at their mother. They were looking at an object, a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be moved. The pain, it was so deep, deeper than I'd ever felt. It wasn't a sharp pain that made me gasp, but a dull, heavy ache, spreading through my chest, chilling me from the inside out. No tears came. Not a single one. It was too profound for tears. There were no words. There was nothing to say. This was the final break. The certainty of abandonment. The realization that everything I had hoped for, everything I had longed for, was gone. Just like that. Right there, sitting on my own favorite sofa, in the very heart of my home, I was declared incompetent, declared unworthy of making my own choices. And it was done by the very people I had taught to speak, the children whose first words I had cherished. In that cutting silence, as they waited for my answer, for my agreement, I understood something else. For them, my value had an expiration date. and it had just passed. I was just an old woman, no longer useful, no longer relevant. Only a burden. And that understanding, colder than any winter wind, settled deep into my soul. In that cutting silence, as they waited for my answer, for my agreement, I understood something else. For them, my value had an expiration date, and it had just passed. I was just an old woman, no longer useful, no longer relevant. Only a burden. And that understanding, colder than any winter wind, settled deep into my soul. My children, my own flesh and blood, had just pronounced me obsolete. When they finally finished speaking, their eyes fixed on me, expecting a quick nod, a tearful surrender, I just sat there. I looked from Michael's stern face to Sarah's sympathetic but firm expression, and then to the neatly dressed Mr. Davies, who just looked professional. They were waiting for me to crumble. But something shifted inside me. It wasn't defiance yet, not really. It was just a quiet space opening up. So with a voice that surprised even me with its steadiness, I simply said, "I need to think." A slight pause. Then a slow smile spread across Michael's face, mirrored by Sarah's. They looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. They thought they had won. Oh, they truly believed it. They gathered their papers, stood up, and Mr. Davies offered a polite, almost pitying nod. "Take your time, Eleanor," Michael said, his voice softer now, almost kind. "But don't take too long. Property prices, you know." Sarah added, "We just want what's best for you, Mom." They said their goodbyes, collected their briefcases, and left my house. The front door clicked shut, the sound echoing in the sudden, vast silence of the living room. As soon as they were gone, the dam broke. The pain hit me hard. It was a wave, crashing over me, stealing my breath. But it wasn't anger. Not really. It was a profound, aching sadness, a mother's heartbreak. How could they? How could my own children do this? The feeling of being discarded, of being seen as nothing more than an obstacle to their inheritance, was overwhelming. My body ached with it, a physical weight on my chest. I just sat there on the sofa, the same one where Arthur and I used to share our quiet evenings, and let the pain wash over me. I didn't cry. There were no tears left, just a hollow ache. But then, as I sat there in that quiet, empty room, a different feeling began to emerge. A warmth, a familiar presence. It was Arthur. Not physically, of course, but his memory, his spirit, seemed to fill the room. I closed my eyes, and I could almost hear his voice, so clear, so steady, from all those years ago. "Eleanor, my love, I've taken care of everything. Keep this binder. Only open it if you ever feel they're trying to take advantage of you." His promise, his quiet, unwavering promise to protect me. That memory, that promise, was like a lifeline. It pulled me up from the depths of my sadness. The ache was still there, yes, but it was now accompanied by a growing sense of calm, of purpose. I knew what I had to do. I slowly rose from the sofa and walked, almost automatically, up the grand staircase. My steps felt lighter now, propelled by something beyond mere will. I walked down the hall to our old study, a room I barely entered anymore. Not since Arthur passed. It was his sanctuary, filled with his books, his desk, his quiet order. I went straight to the desk, the heavy mahogany one where he worked so many late nights. My hands, still trembling slightly, reached for the hidden drawer I knew so well. And there it was, the leather binder, dark, unassuming, waiting. I pulled it out, feeling its familiar weight, its cool, smooth surface against my fingers. It felt like holding a piece of him. I sat down in his old chair, the worn leather creaking softly under me, and placed the binder on the desk. My hands, still trembling a little, gently opened it. Inside, it wasn't just cold, dry legal documents. Oh no, it was so much more. It was the tangible evidence of a man's boundless love, of his foresight, of his unwavering care for me. There was the will and testament, of course, clear as day, but there was more. So much more. There were letters written in his familiar hand. Notes. And then there it was. A special clause. A document he had prepared with his lawyer years and years before. My Arthur. He knew. He always knew this could happen. He had seen their coldness, their ambition, long before I ever allowed myself to. And he had prepared for it, for this very day. As I began to read those papers, page after page, my sadness, that heavy ache, began to transform. It wasn't a quick change, but a slow, steady tide. It became a firm, quiet calm. This wasn't a plan for revenge. It wasn't about anger or retaliation. No, this was an act of dignity, a reclaiming of my own self. I wouldn't need to argue. I wouldn't have to shout. I wouldn't have to plead or justify myself. I would simply follow my husband's last loving wish to protect me, to give me the right to choose my own destiny. Their carefully orchestrated game, their little play for my assets, had ended before it even truly began. They had made their move, and Arthur had already called it. And inside that binder, nestled within those papers that spoke of his foresight and love, I found not only my security, not only my peace of mind, but something else entirely. I found the strength, the quiet, unshakable strength to give them the only answer they truly deserved, the answer Arthur had prepared. The following days were pure pressure. It was like a siege tightening around me, day by day. The phone, which had once been a rare visitor, became a constant, demanding ring. The calls weren't just weekly anymore. They were daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Each ring was a reminder, each conversation a new jab. Michael would call, his voice tight with an impatience he barely bothered to hide. "So, Mom, have you decided yet?" he'd ask, the question hanging in the air like a demand, not a query. There was no real concern for me, not in his tone. No, "How are you feeling today, Mom?" No, "Do you need anything?" Just that one sharp question. Sarah would follow, her voice a little softer, but no less insistent. "Property prices could drop, Mom. We can't waste time," she'd urge. as if she were doing me the biggest favor in the world, trying to save me from some imagined financial ruin. Their only real concern, their only true focus was my signature, my name on a piece of paper, the one that would hand them everything they desired. It wasn't just them either. One afternoon, the doorbell rang, and there, standing beside Michael and Sarah, was Uncle Ted. My Uncle Ted. He was a distant relative, a second cousin I hadn't seen in years, not since Arthur's funeral, maybe even before. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. They had brought him. They had actually brought a family elder, someone I hadn't seen in decades, to try and convince me. "Eleanor," he started, his voice a little shaky, "your children, they only want what's best for you. This house, it's a lot, isn't it? They're just trying to help." His words, meant to soothe, felt like another blow, another voice joining the chorus against me. Loneliness wrapped itself around me then, a cold, heavy blanket. It felt as if the whole world was on their side, as if everyone believed I was the problem. They were painting me as a stubborn, selfish old woman who didn't want to give up her assets, her large, empty house, to help her struggling family. Michael and Sarah would talk about their difficulties, their sacrifices, always implying that I was standing in the way of their salvation. It was subtle, yes, but it was there, a constant undercurrent to every conversation. The shame of it, the feeling of being judged, it was almost unbearable. But I held firm. I kept my answers simple, unyielding. Each call, each visit, each attempt to sway me was met with the same quiet response. "I'm still sorting things out," I would say, my voice steady. "Be patient." I repeated it like a mantra, a shield against their relentless pressure. Every single word they spoke, every impatient sigh, every thinly veiled accusation was further proof, further confirmation that I was doing the right thing. Arthur's plan, my decision to follow it, felt more correct with every passing moment. The pain of it all, of being treated as a burden, as an inconvenience by my own children, it reached its peak during those days. It wasn't the sharp pain of betrayal anymore, but a dull, persistent ache. It was the pain of invisibility. I felt as if my will, my feelings, my very existence no longer held any value for them. I was just an object, a hurdle. They saw a house, they saw money. They did not see their mother. They did not see Eleanor. It was as if I had become a ghost in my own home, a mere echo. But they didn't know. They had no idea what was truly unfolding. While they suffocated me with their haste, with their endless calls and their thinly veiled threats, I was merely preparing. Quietly, calmly, I was preparing the stage. The stage for our last and definitive meeting, the one where Arthur's careful planning would finally, unequivocally, speak for itself. I scheduled a meeting with them, not at their convenience, not anywhere else. It was here, in my own living room, the very same room where they had sat just days before, declaring me obsolete, planning my future without me. I wanted them to be here, in the heart of my home, for this final conversation. The air felt charged, but for me, it was a calm, steady energy, a sense of purpose. They arrived promptly, Michael and Sarah, and they were smiling. a wide, confident smile on Michael's face, a softer, almost sympathetic smile from Sarah. They walked in, exuding an air of triumph, as if the deal was already done, the papers merely a formality. Mr. Davies wasn't with them this time. This, they clearly thought, was the final, private cleanup. Michael carried a slim folder. He pulled out several sheets of paper, crisp and official-looking. Contracts, I assumed, deeds. They placed them on the coffee table right in front of me. Then Michael took a pen from his jacket pocket and placed it firmly in my hand, his fingers briefly touching mine, a gesture that was meant to be reassuring, but felt like a quiet command. They were certain, absolutely certain of their victory. It was then, with all the calm in the world, a calm that truly surprised me, I gently, deliberately pushed their papers aside. The pen slipped from my grasp, clattering softly on the polished wood of the table. Their smiles faltered, just for a moment, a flicker of confusion in their eyes. Then I reached beneath the coffee table, where I had placed it moments before they arrived. I placed Arthur's dark leather binder, heavy and solid, on the coffee table. The thud it made seemed to echo in the suddenly quiet room. Their eyes followed my movements, now wary. The air thickened. I opened the binder slowly, deliberately. The pages inside were pristine. I took out the first document, the will. "Your father left me everything, as you know," I began, my voice clear, steady. "This house, the accounts, everything is in my name, free and clear." Michael, ever impatient, tried to interrupt. "Yes, Mom, we know. That's why I have here. That's why we're here to help you manage it, to ensure your peace of mind." He was already moving to put his papers back in play, to steer the conversation back to his narrative. I cut him off with a small, firm gesture of my hand. My eyes met his, then Sarah's. There was no anger in my gaze, just a quiet resolve. "But he left something more," I continued, my voice unwavering. I reached back into the binder and took out a second document. This one was shorter, a single page. It was the special clause, the one Arthur had prepared with such foresight, such deep love. My voice, though soft, carried every word clearly in the hushed room. "Your father stipulated that should you ever attempt to force me to sell this house, my home, or to place me in a retirement home against my will, the inheritance that would one day be yours would be automatically transferred to the charity organization he supported his entire life." The silence that fell over the room then was heavy, dense. It pressed in on us, on them. It felt like the air had been sucked out. Their faces transformed, a breathtaking series of shifts. First, that triumphant, confident smile vanished, replaced by a stunned, disbelieving look. Then shock, pure and raw, flashed in their eyes, quickly followed by a deepening, chilling despair. Michael's jaw dropped slightly. Sarah's eyes widened, her hands coming up, almost as if to cover her mouth. They looked from me to the document, then back to me, then to the paper again, reading and rereading the words, as if they could somehow change them, erase them, make them disappear. They couldn't. Their greed, Their relentless pursuit of what they thought was mine had activated the very trap my husband, with such careful, loving consideration, had prepared. It was a perfect, quiet justice. Not only would they not be able to sell the house, not only would they not gain control over my life, but they had just, in that very moment, lost any future right to what remained of Arthur's estate. Gone. There were no shouts from them, no arguments, no pleas, just a stunned, silent comprehension of the facts. The undeniable legal facts laid bare before them. And in that profound, shattering silence, as they finally absorbed the full weight of what had just transpired, something profound shifted between us. For the first time in years, for the first time maybe ever, they looked at me, truly looked at me, not as an obstacle to be overcome, not as a helpless old woman, not as a safe deposit box to be emptied. No, they looked at me as the woman they never truly knew, the woman who, in that very moment, quietly, unexpectedly, held all the power, the woman who had, by simply being herself and following the will of the man who loved her, completely turned their world upside down. After that day, the silence returned. But this time, it was different. It wasn't the heavy, anxious silence of waiting, or the crushing silence of abandonment. No, this was a silence of peace, a quiet, profound peace that settled over the house and over me. Michael and Sarah never contacted me again. Not a single call, not a single text, nothing. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly at all, I didn't feel a void, only a lightness. The house, which for so long had felt like a burden, a large, echoing reminder of their relentless pressure, became my home again, truly my home. It wasn't a place to defend anymore, but a place to live. I started to look at it differently, to really see it for the first time in years. The sunlight streaming through the windows seemed brighter. The air felt cleaner. I began making small changes, little by little, transforming spaces to fit just me, my life, my desires. Michael's old room, which had been gathering dust, became my small greenhouse. I filled it with orchids, their delicate blooms, bringing so much quiet joy. And Sarah's room, once a teenage haven, I transformed into a reading room, a quiet sanctuary filled with books and a comfortable armchair where I could lose myself for hours. I didn't feel joy, not a triumphant burst of it, at what had happened with my children. No, it wasn't a victory to be celebrated. Instead, it was a profound relief, a deep, cleansing exhale after years of holding my breath. The constant pressure, the subtle manipulations, the feeling of being hunted, all of it was gone, and in its place came a tranquility I hadn't known in ages. I started reaching out. I reconnected with old friends, women I'd known for decades but had drifted from, partly due to my own isolation, and partly, I now realized, because of the quiet shame of my children's behavior. We'd meet for lunch, talk for hours, just like the old days. Their warmth was a balm to my soul. I even enrolled in a neighborhood gardening club, something I'd always wanted to do, but never made time for. It was wonderful, sharing tips and stories with others who loved the soil as much as I did. And slowly, shyly at first, I started inviting neighbors over. Just for afternoon tea, a simple affair, but the laughter and chatter began to fill the quiet spaces of my big house again. A life that was solely mine, built on the foundation of the love and respect that Arthur, my wonderful Arthur, had so carefully left me. The wealth my husband bequeathed me, I truly understood it then. It wasn't just in the bank statements or the deed to this house. It was in the tranquility, in the freedom of being able to grow old on my own terms, with dignity. I learned a difficult but vital lesson. True family isn't what blood imposes. It's what the heart chooses and what mutual respect cultivates. My new routine is so simple now, so unhurried. It's watered by the warm morning sun, by the rich soil of my garden, and by the good conversations that now fill my days. I didn't wave a flag of victory. I didn't gloat. I simply opened the windows of my house, literally, and the windows of my soul. And I let peace finally, truly enter. It filled every room, every corner, every part of me. It was like breathing clean, fresh air after a long, stifling winter. Today, when I look back at everything that happened, with the quiet peace I finally have, I see something clearer than ever before. The greatest pain, I've realized, isn't really abandonment. It's not even the sting of their greed. No, the deepest, most profound pain was being treated as invisible. Invisible by the very people you loved most in this world, the ones you brought into it, the ones you poured your entire being into raising. That's what cuts deepest. It's feeling that your worth, your entire value as a person, suddenly depends on what you can offer, not on who you are. It's like they looked past my 76 years of life, past all the memories we shared, past the mother I was, and saw only a number, a house, an asset. They didn't see the woman who worried about them, who cooked their favorite meals, who stayed up at night when they were sick. They saw a means to an end, a key to a vault they desperately wanted to open. And that feeling, that chilling sense of being reduced to an object, is a wound that aches long after the storm has passed. And I know, in my quiet moments, that this isn't a pain I experienced alone. It's a silent pain, a hidden ache. So many of us older women know it well. We carry it in our hearts, sometimes for years, without ever speaking of it. The way society, sometimes even our own families, can begin to diminish us as we age, as if our wisdom, our experiences, our very being somehow lose their luster, their relevance, just because our hair turns gray or our steps become a little slower. It's as if the world forgets that a lifetime of living holds an irreplaceable value. It's a silent battle, fought in quiet living rooms, at dinner tables, in moments of forced smiles and unspoken understandings. I want to leave a question, a thought, for you who are listening to my story. Just a simple question, from my heart to yours. And you? Have you ever felt undervalued or seen only as a means to an end by those who should protect and honor you? Have you ever felt that silent erosion of your worth, not by strangers, but by the very people who should cherish you most? Always remember this, please. Your story, every single chapter of it, every joy and every sorrow, every memory you carry within you, and your dignity, the quiet strength that defines who you are. These are your greatest assets. These are treasures that no money can buy, no contract can capture, and no one, absolutely no one, has the right to put a price on that. They are yours. They are the essence of you. Hold on to them fiercely, because they are truly priceless. And the peace that comes from recognizing your own worth, independent of what others want from you, that peace is the most valuable thing of all. It's the foundation of everything else. It's the quiet strength that lives inside us, waiting to be found, even after the hardest of times. That strength, that quiet, steady hum inside me, it's what guides me now. It's what allows me to wake up each morning, to walk out into my garden and feel the sun on my face. The world outside these walls keeps spinning, of course, with its pressures and its complications. But here, in my home, in my garden, there's a quiet rhythm, a gentle beat that's all my own. The air smells sweeter, the quiet moments feel deeper. It's as if, by shedding that heavy weight of their expectations, I finally learned to I see them not as a chore, but as a living testament to patience, to growth, to enduring beauty. Every leaf I prune, every bloom I admire, feels like a small act of self-care, a quiet affirmation of the life I'm choosing to live. I sit on my porch swing, the one we built together, and I watch the birds. Sometimes a little robin lands on the railing, tilting its head as if sharing a secret. And in those moments, the weight of the past, the ache of what was lost, it just lifts. It doesn't disappear completely. No, some scars never truly fade. But the sting is gone, replaced by a deep, unwavering sense of rightness, of gratitude for the present. My days are simple, filled with small, quiet joys. I spend hours in my new reading room, the sunlight warm on my face as I turn the pages of a good book, lost in stories that are not my own, but still resonate. I bake. Sometimes the rich, comforting smell of fresh bread fills the kitchen, just like it used to when Michael and Sarah were little, filling these same walls with their laughter. But now it's for me, or for a friend who might drop by. I join my gardening club meetings, and we talk for hours about soil and seeds and the miracle of growth, about the quiet wisdom of nature. I call my friends, and we share laughter, and sometimes a quiet, understanding glance about the things that life throws at us, the challenges we face as we grow older. These small moments, these everyday connections, they are my true wealth now. They are my victory, not a victory over anyone, but a triumph for myself, for my own heart. I walk through the rooms of this house now, and I no longer feel the phantom presence of their judgment. That coldness, that calculating gaze, it's been replaced. Instead, I feel Arthur's love, strong and true in every corner. His foresight, his quiet protection, it lives here. And I feel my own presence, solid and real, a woman who has endured and found her way back to herself. It's a home filled with light, with warmth, with chosen connections. It's where I live my dignity, day by quiet day. I'm not waiting for anything anymore. No frantic phone calls that once brought dread. No unexpected visitors with hidden agendas. Just the gentle, beautiful unfolding of each unburdened day. The sky above my garden seems wider. The stars at night shine brighter. And I feel a connection to something larger than myself. A quiet harmony with the world around me. This journey, this quiet fight for my own peace, it's a story I felt compelled to share from the deepest part of my heart because I felt it was important. Important for me to speak my truth. And maybe, just maybe, important for you too, because I know, truly know, that many of you out there have felt something similar. That quiet pain of being misunderstood, of being undervalued, of fighting for your own place in the world, for your own worth. And if you want to keep receiving real stories like this, stories from the heart, stories that remind us of our own quiet strength, of finding our way through life's unexpected turns, I ask you, please, to pay attention. YouTube might be unsubscribing you without warning. Confirm you're still subscribed to the channel and activate the bell. It's just a little gesture, a way for us to stay connected, to keep sharing these moments of truth, of resilience, of finding our own peace together. It means so much to me, knowing that we're sharing.